HUMBLEBRAG.
Oh God.
I would be like, oh, I'm so annoyed that I have to give a panel or time because then you're kind of like, oh, people are always asking me what I think about things.
I feel so bloated from my belly full of gold.
Right.
I can't believe I got to sit next to George Clooney.
That's not a humble. That's just a brag. Yeah, because humble would be like, oh, he smelled like steak.
And because I had the flu.
Right. Okay.
It's funny when people acknowledge what they're doing.
There is a Twitter feed at HUMBLEBRAG which collects them, and it's
excellent.
Literally you can find them pretty much every second on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, that's the worst thing about Twitter, just people who just are braggarts, right? I mean, we were talking about the things we don't like. What's the worst? People who just...
But it's interesting, because if you're young and say you're sort of loosely affiliated with, like, the music industry, if all you do is humble brag, you will absolutely have more than 30,000 followers. It's crazy. No, it's true. It's like, it's all sneaker tweets and like limo tweets, and you will have that many followers.
Well, one of the anxieties when you raised the question of the humble brag, I mean, one of the things that's difficult for some people is kind of when you're trying to actually send out your work, and then how do you do that? And I think that's a big anxiety. Yeah, so like I think that and sometimes it's actually just a sincere expression of what you care about or something like that. Like sometimes, people who are really earnest seem extremely pretentious. So that's actually one of these issues that comes to like when people don't know you and they don't know your context. And that's something that you're just going to have to accept. Some people are going to misinterpret your limo tweets.
But you know what? There's a way to get around that. You could actually, you want to know how to beat a humble brag? You actually go humble brag, and then you do your humble brag. Or you go self-promotion alert, and then you're sort of being ironic that the joke's on you.
Or hashtag humble brag yourself.
How many times is it okay to tweet an article that you wrote? Just once, or can you tweet the next day? Or?
I think you can do, again, if you're not like over the top, I think you do go AM tweet, PM.
Oh, you can be like, okay, like,
especially if it's something
like, sorry, tweeting this again.
No, actually, no. To me, like, if you think like your work is good, and the people who are following you, are following you for a reason, you don't have to.
But you should acknowledge in some way that you've already tweeted it.
Well, but also the kind of story that Mina does. Like Mina, your work, you'll often work on a story for months and months, and they'll kind of be kind of 4,000, 5,000 words, and there are different pieces to it. Like when you were talking about display copy, there's a thing where like I'm taking out kind of one piece of it, and it's actually I think totally legit. 2-3 days later, take out a different piece of the story because the thing is that most people don't actually read. When you think about most books that are bought, I mean, sort of like how many of them are actually read. So like literally with a story, in terms of kind of when you kind of want to propagate something, they might actually capture kind of one piece of it, sort of with that first wave. But again, what was neglected in the conversation that emerged around your piece about freight rail or kind of whatever else? I think that actually kind of is the thing when you're doing more ambitious, kind of stuff.
I think you have like
sense.
three tops, and I need a time peg. So even if, say it's a 7,000 word feature, it's like, if the conversation does migrate, or there's a headline that pertains to this other part of it, then you can plug again. If you and then final in case you missed it, but 3 max.
What about this is very specific. What about, and this is something I think we've all seen, when someone gives you a compliment, are you allowed to acknowledge that? Like, are you allowed to retweet it?
Yeah.
What about if somebody no, this happens all the time. Happens all the freaking, okay, what about if somebody tweets your story? Like, we were talking about, like, oh, you should say, like, here's a pull quote and a link. This is by Mary, it's really great. Can you, Mary, retweet their tweet about your story?
It depends.
These are subtleties that we encounter every day.
I think you have to generally, in my opinion, avoid the retweet of someone. Man, you're so fantastic. Right. A lot of people, sports writers do this all the time. And
they retweet their compliments, which is lame.
But what if it's like someone gross?
Well,
or like Jose Canseco.
Right.
Or like,
actually, that'd be good because there's a lot of followers, so you just want to.
Right. Then you would totally retweet.
It's something really incredible.
I think if you do it in a clever way. Like, if you say something like, the thing I hate most on Twitter is when people retweet praise for themselves.
And then you retweet your praise.
And it's basically me
You can only do that once.
Praise.
Yeah, you get one.
You get one of those.
You get one of those.
What about, sometimes, like, for example, if long form or long reads tweets your story or something, then is it okay to retweet it?
Of course.
Okay.
Because usually for that, then it's like 3 other things that are dope. So it's just like, but it's also like, here's other things that long You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
and
not
maybe
usually just one selected.
To me, like, if you are not known as like a bragger, I think you can do anything. It's the problem is when you're on a daily basis.
Right, exactly.
Retweeting people saying how
and it
great
keeps
you
coming
are.
back to mix, which is like, this can't be the only thing you do.
Never, ever, 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 ever retweet a Follow Friday. Ever. Ever, ever. Period.
What about Follow Fridays in general? How do we feel about follow? Sorry, let's open up to actual questions.